You're watching CTV News Channel. I'm Roger Peterson. Thank you very much for joining us. We begin with a live look at Ottawa, where stunning allegations released earlier this week in a foreign interference report triggered outrage on Parliament Hill. It alleged that some MPs and senators are wittingly helping foreign governments like China and India meddle in Canadian politics. Now, calls are mounting for the government to release the names of those involved. Let's bring in Tom Mulcair, our CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader. Tom, thanks as always. Pleasure to have you.
Good to be with you, Roger.
It was an interesting week. No agreement to release the names. What are your thoughts on that?
This foreign interference file goes back more than 18 months now, because it has to be looked at in the context of what we went through initially with the allegations of foreign government interference in Canadian elections. Roger, that started in November 2022, Bali, Indonesia, a G20 meeting. We have images of Justin Trudeau finger wagging under the nose of the president of China. And the journalists who were there wanted to know what all that was about. And they were told by Trudeau's people, he was giving him what for? Because the Chinese government had been interfering in our elections. When he got back to Canada, he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't give anything to the Canadian public. He wasn't forthcoming. And when you're not transparent on something as crucial and fundamental as our democracy and our institutions, the public is not going to forget this overnight. So the government stalled, they gave it to David Johnston, and we know what happened. Mm-hmm. We've now got a commission of inquiry under Madam Justice Hogue, and I start with that. Because, Roger, she's saying she's not being given all of the information that she's entitled to be able to file her report. It's being held back by Trudeau and the people around him in the Prime Minister's office. Fast forward, what did we learn this week? David McGuinty, a highly respected senior Liberal MP, signs a report with other members of that nonpartisan committee and says, look, we were not given access to about 1,000 documents that we needed to see. And beyond that, we're not able to do our work. And we do know, and this is what they have in their report, that there are Canadian members of our Parliament, whether they be on the House of Commons side as elected officials or on the Senate side as appointed officials, who have been helping foreign governments and giving them information they're not entitled to. That's a bombshell. And then the issue becomes, well, do we release the names now? And the government's arguments, they've got a litany of arguments. One is, well, it's not exactly 1,000 documents. Well, how many is it? 980? Oh, well, it's illegal to make those names public. No, it's not. An order in council signed by cabinet could make them public. Is it a good idea to make them public? I think that it's not a good idea to make them public because we don't have enough solid information. This hasn't been tested by law enforcement. It hasn't of course, been tested in court, therefore. So you can't just start putting out lists. You're into McCarthyism at that point. So on that part of it, the government's right. But it's after 18 months of stalling that the average Canadian is just saying, I get the sense that there's more going on here than meets the eye, and the government is not giving me the information I'm entitled to. And this is about the Canadian Parliament. And again, it's not the type of thing that governments know, Roger, that it takes about 6 weeks for almost anything to be forgotten by the public. That's an actual number, 6 weeks. Here, it's not going away. Why? Because it's that important to people who care about our country. And the Liberals don't seem to understand that. They're still stonewalling, and the average member of the public is just saying, there's more going on here. They're not being honest with us, and we have a right to know. And they do have a right to know.
Are we going to find out, do you think?
I think we will. I mean, the danger here is it'll be an uncontrolled leak. I mean, the wording of this thing, wittingly or semi-wittingly.
I wanted to ask you about that because we found that an unusual term. We were talking about it in the newsroom, the term wittingly. I mean, who uses that term?
Nobody. You'd use the word intentionally. everybody would understand that. But my favorite was semi-wittingly, the old expression of somebody being a half-wit. But let's just say that none of this looks good on the people who are supposed to be taking care of our government and our institutions, and that's the government in power. The Conservatives have been doing a very decent job around this. They've been careful. They haven't gone white hot over it. Poilievre has it kind of easy because, of course, he stands in the House and he huffs and puffs and says, well, when are you going to release the names? Knowing full well they're not going to. He probably doesn't want them to anyway because you can be sure that if there's Liberals in there, there's probably some Conservatives in there as well. I doubt that there are Bloc MPs who have been giving state secrets away. But be that as it may, I do think that the Poilievre Conservatives have been playing their hands so well for for the same 18 months. I mean, this coincided with Poilievre coming in as Conservative leader. They're smart. I mean, when you're the basic rule of politics, when your adversary is busy beating themselves up, don't do anything to intervene. And this is exactly the policy that they're following. They give out their lines very well. I listened to a detailed debate, almost in successive interviews, but they were able to hear each other between a Conservative MP from Quebec on French radio on Friday, and it's really incredible to hear him always giving the same answers. Dominique Leblanc on behalf of the government, because of course Mr. Trudeau was away at the D-Day commemoration, and it was just an absolute ball of confusion. The lines that the Liberals were trying to put out, there were 3 to 4 different lines of approach. Oh, foreign governments are probably very happy to see us talking about this stuff. Maybe we should stop talking about it. None of it really held together, but it's just chaff, coming out of the back of the plane to try to confuse the radar. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to snow people on this. And Canadians are just saying, hey, it's too important for you to try to use the average strategy of a government, which is to just come up with excuses and keep the thing going. And that's why the Conservatives are smart to keep pushing on it. More has to come. And the first thing that Trudeau has to do, Roger, is give the information to Madame Justice Hogue. I have a feeling she's going to come out publicly on this very soon if she doesn't get the information she's entitled to.
Okay. Tom, as always, thank you very much for your insight on this.
Great to be with you.
CTV News political commentator Tom Mulcair.